Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Ade Amelia Fitri Hasibuan. In this teaching media project, I'm using OBS Studio and Mentimeter to support my teaching process. OBS Studio helps me record the lesson using two cameras, allowing for a more dynamic and interactive presentation. Meanwhile, I use Mentimeter to conduct reviews and assessment, so I can measure my students' understanding effectively. Right now, I want to explore the challenges my students face in understanding punctuation marks in English. I have collected responses from 22 students. 23 students. And together we will identify which aspect of punctuation they find most difficult. Then I will analyze their answer and provide clear explanation to help improve their understanding. Alright, let's take a look. Let's see. The question is, which punctuation mark do you find most confusing? Explain why. Let's see. Oh, there are 36. Answer. The first is semicolon and comma. It's kinda hard to use. And colon, semicolon, because I don't know how to use semicolon and colon. Next answer, semicolon. It's rare to use it. Nothing. Wow. Hyphens, because hyphens are confusing because they look similar to other dashes, like N dash and M dash, but have different functions. Yeah. Semicolon, because I often being fooled between comma and semicolon. It's sometimes confusing. The semicolon, because I'm confused about when, where, and how to use it. Apostrophe and semicolon. The most confusing is dash. There are other kinds of dash such as M dash and so on, so it's hard for me to determine when to use it. The semicolon is often the most confusing punctuation mark because it's unclear when to use it instead of a period or comma. The semicolon is often the most confusing. Oh, same like before. The semicolon is often considered one of the most confusing punctuation marks for both people and even some AI systems because it sits awkwardly between a comma and a period. Yeah. The semicolon is the most confusing because it's hard to know when to use it instead of a period or comma. Semicolon. For example, I like reading books, especially historical fiction novels. Oh, you read the example of semicolon, yeah? Dash or long dash. Example, he finally came after 2 hours of reading. Thank you for giving example. Colon. Dash because it's tricky between contraction and possession. Colon, confusing because it introduces quotes or explanations. Apostrophe, misused in contradiction and questions. I can't differentiate between dash and hyphens. I think the most confusing punctuation mark is the semicolon. It's hard to know when to use it. Sometimes it joins two sentences, but not like as a comma or period. Wow. Dry text. Dash, apostrophe, and colon. I think it's semicolon. I'm kind of tricky when using this and comma. I cannot find the difference between dash and hyphen. Dash and hyphen. I cannot find the difference between them. Dash because also almost same with hyphen. I think it does because there are some types of dash and it's kind of difficult to differentiate. Semicolon because I still don't know how to does it work. It's a hybrid mark. The semicolon sits awkwardly between a comma and a period. It's stronger than the comma but not as final as a period, which makes it hard to know when it's appropriate to use. Nothing. I quite understand. Well, that's good. Semicolon because same with comma. Dash and hyphen because I cannot find a difference between them. Semicolon and comma. Semicolon and colon. Comma. I often get confused when I should use them and for what condition of sentences. semicolon. Due to sometimes confusing reasons, semicolons are used as comma but also as colon, but if you understand, you will know the difference. Dash and hyphen. Alright. As we collected the answer, I already summarized that there are some punctuation that's kind of hard to understanding by my students. It's dash, semicolon, colon. Okay, let's see. I will review the answer. Understanding punctuation. What is understanding punctuation? Punctuation is a symbol to create meaning within a sentence or to break it up. It's to separate sentences from one idea to another ideas. It uses as guidance of the readers to rate whether it is stop, pause, raising or falling in intonation. The importance of punctuation in writing. Without appropriate punctuation, sentences can become difficult to understand and the meaning can become ambiguous. For instance, the placement of a comma can completely change the meaning of a sentence, as seen in the classic example, "Let's eat, Grandma" versus "Let's eat, Grandma." It's ridiculous because it's ambiguous and have different meaning without using comma. Punctuation in various of texts. In narrative text, punctuation is used to indicate the flow of the story, separate dialogue from narrative text. In descriptive text, punctuation is key to creating vivid imagery by controlling the flow of the text and helping to emphasize particular details. In argumentative text, these texts rely heavily on punctuation to structure logical arguments, emphasize points, and guide the reader through complex reasoning. And next, in scientific text, punctuation ensures clarity and precision. It's especially important in supporting ideas, data, and source accurate. There are some types of punctuation we will learn. The first is comma. Comma can be used to separating clauses, words, and word groups with a series of 3 or more, or to indicate pause in a sentence. For example, "I bought apples, bananas, and grapes." Comma separates each fruit in the list, making it easier for the reader to understand the sentence. The next type is dot. The dot or period used to indicate the end of complete statement or sentence. It signals a full stop and helps separate number and ideas. For example, "The children are playing in the park. They look very happy." Used to separate two different sentences within a paragraph. And the next is semicolon, the most confusing punctuation. Used to separating items in complex sentences. On our trip, we visited Paris, France, then semicolon, Rome, Italy, semicolon, and Barcelona, Spain. Semicolons are used to clearly separate each item and avoid confusion. This is particularly useful when listing place, names, or description that contain commas. The next is question mark, used at the end of sentence to indicate a direct question. "Why didn't he come to the party last night?" The question mark is used to ask for the reason behind an event, namely why someone didn't attend the party. Next, colon. It's almost same with semicolon. Colon is used to introduce additional information, such as a list, an explanation, or a quotation that expands of the meaning of the preceding clause. For example, "You need to bring the following items: colon, a flashlight, a tent, and a sleeping bag." The colon is used here to introduce a list item that need to bring the following items, like a flashlight, a tent, and a sleeping bag. Next, quotation mark. Used to indicate speech, direct quotation, or to denote titles of specific works. They have the author voice and quoted or spoken statement. For example, "I don't know what to do," said Davy anxiously. This mark used to separate the dialect and expression of Davy. Next, apostrophe. Used to take contradiction, make nouns and some pronouns possessive, and make letters of the alphabet plural. For example, Viola's phone is missing. These marks indicate that phone belonging to Viola is lost. And last, hyphen. Used to connect compound words or separate syllables of a word at the end of a line. For example, Mother bought a table chair set for the living room. This mark used to connect two words that meaning single unit. Table chair set, it's one unit. 4 functions of understanding punctuation. The first is clarifying the meaning of sentences. Help ensure that sentences are understood as intended by the writer. Next, arranging the rhythm and intonation. Creates natural pause, influencing the rhythm of the reading and helping readers understand. Next, separating elements in a sentence. Marks separate clauses, phrases, or words to clarify relationship between sentences elements and prevent confusion. And last, showing dialect and quote. Quotation mark indicates spoken word or cited text, making it clear that content is either an indirect quote or piece of dialect. Alright, from this all, I would like to give my students a question. How can we improve our understanding punctuation? Let's see what they already answer. The first is keep practicing. The second, reading a lot of well-written English text, such as articles, books, or journals, to get familiar with how punctuation is used in real context. Third, by understanding the use of each punctuation, we already know. Read often, practicing writing, study punctuation rules, get feedback, and use grammar tools to reinforce correct use and understanding. I think more reading and watching the tutor from YouTube it can be helpful to understand the punctuation in English. Write more often and use punctuation. Write regularly and apply punctuation rules. It looks like a comma and a colon had a baby. People often don't know whether to treat it like a fancy comma or a mild period. You should practice how to use punctuation when you write. Read books and notice punctuation. Write sentences and read them aloud. Always reading a book. Simple. The best way to improve understanding of punctuation in English is a mix of practical use, focused learning, and feedback. Wow. Always practicing in reading written. Use tools like Grammarly to check your writing. The best way is to read a fiction book or article because I think the punctuation from it already correct or most all correct because the author needs to check if everything has perfect in it. Do more practice. Okay, that's all from our students' answer to keep improving English punctuation. And I think that's all true. You can try it to make your understanding better. So that's all from me, from Ade Amelia Fitri Hasibuan to complete my project about teaching media, and I hope it will be make you got knowledge from my video. That's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.